It does not hurt. Like you're just amassing a collection of whatever, you have money, you're just buying. You don't have personal connection to them.
Alright, so hi, welcome back to the next episode of Watches and People, episode 8, I believe. And today we have Marshall, right? So Instagram handle and everything, but you should already know him, right? Okay, so just a very quick run through of which watch for today. Marshall did not have any. He was wearing one. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I am actually wearing an Omega Constellation, a vintage Omega Constellation from the mid-60s. I believe this is the 168016. Very nice vintage piece that I picked up recently.
Cool.
And I can't seem to take it off. Yeah.
Alright, so I have the Baltic Trice Compact Expeditor Auto. Right.
I'm on the Moonwatch 1861.
And I'm on the Grand Seiko's Four Seasons Summer.
Cool. Perfect. All right. So for today's episode, we're going to get a deep dive into Marshall's journey into watches, how they get started, basically who he is. And it will be a 2-episode segment for today. And the next episode we're going to talk about in terms of how the Medic Blog founded and so on, right? So starting off with that, could maybe let the audience know who are you and what do you do and so on.
Yeah. So first of all, Marshall here. If you don't already know, my close friends call me Kai. I used to be a lawyer, practicing lawyer 2 years ago, and I quit my job late 2020, and I really deep dived into this whole world of just insanity. And but right now I'm actually a freelancer. By that I mean that I have multiple clients, but I think people in the community know me as the guy who works with Song watches. So yeah, here I am. 2 years in.
Cool.
Doing pretty alright. I hope.
I mean, that's what all of us want to do, right? I mean, eventually go full-time in watches, but probably we'll get some insights on that, where it's probably not all rainbows and sunshine. We will probably share later.
Definitely.
Right. So, how do you get into watches? When do you start liking and collecting watches?
For me, it wasn't really I wasn't really a watch guy growing up, right? I knew I had a couple of digital watches, the cheap ones you can get from outside the supermarket. My parents would buy me one or two. I wore a digital watch throughout my high school years, but it was around 2012. My mom actually told me this because I turned 18 in 2012, and I was approached by my mom, and she said something along the lines of since you're a young adult right now, you should probably wear a watch, because it symbolizes some sort of responsibility, that kind of stuff. I was like, what? Why? I have a phone. I have cloths all over my classroom and whatnot. So I brushed it off. But then we were in Taiwan for a family trip. Actually, I was visiting some family, and then my mom was she brought me to circle around the block outside a hotel, and she found this watch store. I believe it was family owned. They had your usual run-of-the-mill fashion watches, and then Seiko, Citizen, whatnot. I remember telling my mom that I wanted this very nice DKNY blue dial quartz watch, and my mom was like, "Get something branded, proper brand, right?" And she steered me into the direction of Citizen. So I bought a Citizen. It was the very first one was Citizen Eco Drive. I should have brought it today, but oddly enough, if you're gonna Google the serial number, the reference number, I actually remember it. Don't ask me how. It's an AW1018 55E. It's actually a black, like a PVD black Eco Drive watch. I believe they have a name for it now, probably for the American market. It's called the Chandler.
The Chandler.
Like
for friends.
Yeah, there you go. I didn't know until I Googled it recently. Like, what? There's a name now? So that piece, I believe, it was like 43 mm. Massive, and it's like flat. And I wore that for a good couple of years. And then I jumped into the whole, I believe it was called the Casio Merlin. The Duro stuff, right? They had like Submariner styles. I bought that.
Yeah.
And then it was around that time that I started to use Instagram. And then around that period, it was when Instagram, watch wrist shots were like at its peak, right? So yeah, people like Watch Anish, all these people coming up, and then they're showing all these great shots, and I started to take notice of like, wow, I didn't realize like watches are they can be styled that way, and I love the aesthetic of it, and I started doing my own. I buy my own like cheap bracelets, and it's like, wow, it's like an expression of my own personality in that sense, right? So I started to get into it, and then it was around that time Talking Watches with John Mayer came out as well.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that was the very first video that really, I probably watched that video a million times, I don't know. But if I could get $1 for that, for every time, it would be a lot of money. So yeah, it's around that time I started to take notice of watches, and I started to look at what people were wearing on their wrists, right? And that was like first year of law school. And then I saved up some money. I got my very first Orient Flight, which is this piece right here. It wasn't really expensive back then. I believe it's more expensive now for some reason. Not sure. Right? Yeah.
Is it still in production today?
It is still in production. The reason why I got this was because it's not a Seiko. I believe they're a subsidiary of Seiko. They make their own calibers, which I love. And it's a blue dot, I got a matching strap to go with it, and I wore it for like almost every day for the next like couple of years.
So this is your first mechanical watch?
First mechanical, automatic, that one there.
Pretty massive one.
Yeah, massive one. But you know what? I beat it up all the time. It still looks good,
Yeah.
I don't wear it anymore, but this is, when I look at this watch, it brings me back to those times, first year in law school. And I remember my classmates were like, they're not into watches at all. But every time I look at my watch, they ask me, so what are you wearing today? And then I gradually got my friends into it as well.
Nice.
Some of those course mates back then eventually became members of the first group of thematic members.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
and so those are the early days, sort of origin story, which we'll get into later part of this podcast. But this is my first love. Still love it dearly. I don't wear it; it's always there, but it will always be part of that, the box.
So was your mom also into watches? Like, I mean, the fact that she steered you away from the DKNY piece. I mean, she would have kind of known.
I think she would. I think she knew about like what are the branded stuff.
Okay.
Like Seiko, Citizen, Orient. She
Like
knows
the actual watch brands lah.
Yeah, because like even for a fashion piece back then, it wasn't cheap. Obviously, I didn't have any money.
Yeah.
So 600-700 for like a quartz piece is like, wow, it's crazy. So for that money, I'd rather get something that's a bit more established, right?
Fair
So
enough.
we went there, and never looked back.
So what is your other shortlisted watch aside from the Orient?
It was the Orient Ray, I think.
The Blu-ray?
It's actually the blue one. I was looking at that for some time, but I already had like a Casio Duro at the time, so there was a diver. I wanted something a bit more different, and I fell in love with the dial. It's not something you see every day. I think back then it's not very common. I love the Flieger style aesthetic.
So at that point, how many, like, what is your knowledge level of watches? Are you already like, oh, I already done some research. I have a diver watch already. Now I want to look for a pilot, and I'm ticking down the boxes that way, or it's just the aesthetic? Yeah.
A little bit of both, actually. I was looking to tick all, like you said, tick all boxes. I want a dress watch at some point. I would like a casual, everyday, whatever, beat it up kind of watch. I want a diver, I want a pilot. So that was sort of my approach. And also, what would my budget allow me at the time? So I already had the previous ones, like I mentioned. So the pilot was the next one on the list. So I went down that route. And I also, John Mayer talked about that. He had a IWC Big Pilot. I believe it's a reference 5001. They play a little bit of, little part in my decision making at the time. Like, I want to be a John Mayer, in that sense. Obviously. So that was my little meaningful way of getting into it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. And then in terms of your friends that started out with you as well, all of them are not, in a way, watch enthusiasts prior to that.
Oh, no, definitely not. They are, they're like their own little, their own little hobbies, right? And then I think I got them to watch like Talking Watches over and over again. And then I think they just got hooked. And then this started sometime in 2015. I was in Oxford Brookes Uni. Oxford is like a really quiet town. Nothing much you can do, right? So I spent a lot of time in the library just researching. I should have been researching for law material, but no. So I was literally in a lounge, and then I was talking to my friends like, "Hey, I want to do something like this, right?" And then Do you want to save this for later, or is it it's like an origin story?
Then we could probably save this for later, I guess. Yeah, yeah.
I
So
think
stay
I'll-
tuned for the next one. Yeah.
I have a lot more to share on that.
Yeah.
but let's
Okay.
get into that later. Yeah.
All right. So where do we go from there then after the Orient?
After this, I went a bit crazy because I went to, I went to UK. I went to Oxford for my third year. And what do you get in UK? You get Amazon Prime, right? So when I went there, I started realizing like, oh, the beauty of online shopping. You can just tap and then it will appear in your mailbox the next day. And then I was like, oh, my parents sent me some allowance money, right? I was like, what am I gonna do with this? Screw the daily groceries. I'm gonna get one
The
first,
meals, right?
Yeah. So my first one that I really got into was this Seiko SNZH 57. I loved it because it wasn't like anything you see in on collector's wrist. In fact, I think I can count the number of times I've seen this, right? And it has that 50 fathoms look to it.
Yeah,
People love to
definitely.
modify it, which I don't agree with.
I
that.
think they Mass Rock used to have this.
Really.
Yeah, I think so, and I almost bought it
I
as
think
well.
so.
Yeah.
I
This
remember seeing
piece
something
is,
like this.
it means a lot to me because if you put it on your wrist, you look at the proportions, you look at the case, how round it is, and it sits on top of your wrist like that, right? I think it's beautiful, like the way the bezel contrasts the dome as well, the dome crystal. It's an underrated watch for sure. So this was the first one that I got.
So what makes you get back into another dive watch then? Because your criteria you mentioned was like the other checkbox, right?
I was so excited, I didn't really
Yeah.
care.
Fair enough.
Amazon
Fair
Prime.
enough.
Yeah, yeah.
Because
And
Amazon
there was an
Prime.
Instagram user at the time. I don't know if you guys follow him. KickTok. It's KICKTOC. He's one of the OG guys. Like I've been doing this for like almost a decade, right? And then he posted something like this. This watch right here. And I just constantly just felt a connection to it.
So that's how you discover this watch. as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. And
Got it.
like I said, you don't see too many of these. And it's very hard to get it these days, I think.
Okay. So at that point, right, when since you're like a fairly early stage of it,
Yeah.
what was your grill back then?
Oh no, it was
Yeah.
a lot.
Yeah.
Because when you get to Oxford, I would take trips to London, and then London's where all the good stuff is at, right?
Yeah.
There's Watches of Switzerland. There's like Bond Street, Burlington Arcade. I would always be popping my head in all these little boutiques, and I love the El Primero Chronomaster. I love that watch, and also I've been going there to that Watches of Switzerland on Regent Street, I think. Been going there every week, and then occasionally they get like Lange Zeitwerks in. But for me, there was never really a grail kind of watch, And even to this very day, I don't believe in the concept of grail, and I'll explain later why. But it was always like an aspirational thing, like okay, this is what I would aim for. This is what I would aim for. Obviously, that day never came. Not
Yeah.
yet, at least.
Not yet.
I would like to take it slow. So I would say if you ask me when I first got into it, I definitely would love a El Primero Chronomaster. Yeah.
Okay.
The classic one with the
Definitely.
tricolor.
Yes, tricolored. Tricolored, not the skeleton. Half skeleton. I don't really like that one. But yeah, I tend to have a preference towards the more classic stuff. Even more so to this day, as you can see. So yeah, that's what I was into back then. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Then where do we go from here?
And then from there, so London was an interesting time. I met so many amazing people, but the one thing that really took off for me was because this was when the Matic blog it was known as Chronomatic back then. It was a
Wow.
completely different name. Then I realized there was a guy who runs a website that specialized on Hoyer Carrera or something. That's called Chronomatic. I was like, oh my god, my lawyer, law student, I was like, no. We need to do something about it.
Yeah.
But anyway, so back then, the Matic blog gained a lot of traction when I was in London because one of the guys from Seven Friday, like the original team there, Seven Friday's founder and all those guys, they discovered my blog, and they invited me to this event called Salon QP. It's actually a watch fair that's held towards the end of every year. So I thought, shit, I don't have a watch, man. What do I wear? I bought my 007, which surprisingly was like everyone was like, oh, what's this? It was so much enthusiasm. I love it. So from there, Seven Friday really played a big part in the springboard of what I was doing at the time. And I got a P1, an original P1, which is already long gone, sadly. And then from the very same fair, I met Emmanuel Dietrich, who's the founder of Dietrich Watches. We connected instantly. It wasn't like it was just interesting to see like a man, right, just literally creating watches with his own two hands, and then in a workshop. And I never had that sort of connection with someone from an industry like that before, because you're always talking to representatives, right? You're talking
Yep.
to like
Yep.
boutique managers and whatnot. They're not the creators of the watch. They don't tell you what went into certain designs and whatnot. So from there, Dietrich was really the where it really sucked me in. I got really deep into that world. I was really into wildcard watches. I have many variants of this organic time. This is just one of the rare ones that I bought today. So I got really deep into that for like a couple of years.
How big was the Matic Block back then?
The Matic Block this was pre-algorithm. So we were getting 1,000, 2,000 likes in a day. That was really hard.
Pre-algorithm,
And
yeah.
I was kind of free. So I was posting every day.
Yeah.
I had a Samsung S4, and that phone, man, I'm telling you, took like really great pictures. Samsung, but still.
Right.
So I was getting a lot of traction.
Yeah.
A lot of people were talking, and I was getting, because of this traction, and then there's just momentum going. And Seven Friday was sending me a lot of stuff, and I was posting it, and it blew up. It really blew up. And I even, London was an amazing time. I got the chance to have lunch with Watch Annish at some point. All these amazing personalities that I met, and then I just love the fact that it just united us because of this thing.
Yeah.
Right?
Right. So I noticed from the very early stages of your watch collecting stage, you are, I would say, already heading towards the direction that is not mainstream,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah, definitely.
Is there no, at one point, let me rephrase the question. How do you get to there? Or is there at any point that when you got involved into all these people and then you start being influenced into like mainstream brands and so
Yeah.
on?
Yeah.
Or is it because the fact that you meet the right people and then it gets you here?
I think for sure you meet the right kind of people. And for me, it's like when you started collecting, and I see a lot of this pattern in collecting these days, right? You go to Instagram and you look what's hot,
Yeah.
what's hype piece, right? For me, I don't find anything on any hype piece that I don't chase the hype. It's always been in my personality, my nature. I always look for the stuff that no one looks for. I want to be let me rephrase that. It's not that I want to be, but I want to have those watches that people look and then they look again. They ask you what's this, initiate the conversation.
Yeah.
And then because at the end of the day, if you look at where we are right now, it's like you have an iPhone, I have an iPhone, you have an iPhone. They're all standard issue, man. So I want to be able to tell you a story with something that's different from the rest. So I have this inclination towards pieces that are a little bit off the beaten path from the very early days, because I also, the opportunity to speak to people, the creators behind these brands, like Dietrich is one of them. It really struck a chord with me. Like, why is it that certain designs are made that way? Why is it that he doesn't want to go down the Bauhaus route and that kind of stuff? It always made me feel like, wow, this is such a fascinating world, and I don't want to be just another Tom, Dick, Harry with like this or that. Yeah. So I don't want to have a collection that seems like, I have that too. It's not that interesting.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
So what about Dietrich should kind of like really pull you into his design, right?
Yeah.
Because I have to say his design is really different, right?
Yeah,
You don't
it's
see this anywhere.
Polarizing.
Yeah, it's polarizing.
Yeah.
It's either you love it or you hate it.
Mm.
I love it because there was a lot of inspiration. So there are a lot of elements of nature, organic forms and matters being implemented onto this piece right here. Even for that one, you're taking inspiration from, if you remember like 5th grade science,
Yep.
cell walls, all the little things inside. It's,
Yeah.
it's similar to that, right? And it really makes me think about how boundless can this world of watch design be, and this is a good example of that. And it's just such a different concept, and obviously for brands, micro brands like these guys, they don't have a history, and I don't like it when micro brands try to create some false history.
Right.
So I love the fact that Dietrich always stayed very true to themselves. When I say themselves, literally just one man, but he stayed very true to his conviction. He's always like searching ways to put such elements onto the dial that makes it captivating in that sense. So it's not your standard like dive watch, dress watch. This I don't even know what is this. I think it's a form of mechanical art if you ask me.
Yeah.
Category of its
Yeah,
own.
this could be put on the frame and put on the wall, you know. For all I care, that's the kind of watch it is. Yeah, that's one of the things I look for, just uniqueness, and also in a way rarity.
So, well, on the note of micro brand,
Yeah.
what are your thoughts on how is the micro brand scene has evolved back then to now, right? Because now you see
Yeah.
brands popping up left and right,
Yeah.
right? I mean, partly also due to the hype the past couple of years.
Yeah.
And in terms of, in my personal opinion, in terms of value proposition, it's sort of blurring the line already.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, what are your thoughts about
It's
that?
getting very competitive for sure. But what I like to see is, I think there are a lot of micro brands these days, as you know, and some of them great design, some of them not really. Some of them are, because I worked in that line as well. You can see they go get like they actually take something that pre-existing design, very cookie cutter, right? And obviously, I don't really like those kind of stuff. But I love the fact that micro brands these days have very strong vision. For example, Baltic's one, of them, like what you're wearing. Back in the day, I love Autodromo.
Yeah.
I love the
Yeah,
Autodromo
that's
for
very
the
nice.
people. That watch was something I really wanted back then. And I think with the abundance of micro brands these days, it gives a lot of opportunity for people to get into it, right? Because also like people like myself, you know, I don't want to go and get a Rolex right now. I want to start looking at elsewhere, looking at all these smaller brands and really just, you know, and if my friends come and tell me, I always recommend micro brands first, and they ask me why, I always say, it's more interesting you discover watches this way, rather than you ask your uncle what Rolex are, you know, what they just, you know. I mean, yeah, nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
I just find it a little bit more meaningful when
Yeah.
you discover watches bit by bit.
Yeah.
Right. So that's where my perspective is, and it's great that we're in the age of like so many beautiful designs coming up. You know, and obviously Baltic at the front runner, Baltic, Christopher Ward at the front runner, and I'm all for it, man.
So, if someone were to start looking at a micro brand,
Yeah.
where he or she should start looking at it? How? Because their choices are overwhelming, right?
I think you need to ask yourself how much you're willing to spend first, because obviously there are many different price brackets, right? But I always recommend good quality pieces. Christopher Ward is definitely one of them. Nodus is another one, which we will get into later. Baltic also, all these are great designs, and I think you have to set your expectations right. You can't just go in there, I want to buy $100, and you're not going to get anything good out of it. You know, $100, go get a Seiko 5. You know, so that's why I tell people, it's very subjective. I cannot give you a one for all kind of answer. So usually I'll start by asking how much are you willing to pay, and what kind of design resonate with you. You know. Yeah.
Okay. So with all of this right now, where do you see yourself heading to in the future? Is like going down continuously in this path?
No. So I've been in this space for almost a decade now. I could definitely now. You know what? I never actually opened up a watch box for a long time. Now I look at it like that. Like, wow, this is what I used to be into. And then you can see the smaller pieces, the newer vintage pieces that I have right now. This is where it's heading, I think.
Yep.
I'm a bit more picky right now. I only buy watches that they speak to me from a certain design perspective. As to my collecting philosophy, I don't want to go down the route and say, oh, it's a story. You know, I mean, yeah, some of these watches they have amazing stories,
Sentimental wise.
yeah,
right?
sentimental
Yeah.
stories or value attached to it. But for me, it has to resonate with me in a certain way. Like for example, that Omega that Han is holding, I was not expecting to buy anything. I was just making my runs in Publica, which is a mall, upscale mall. Making my runs, passing watches to our friends at Time Emotions, because that's part of my job, right? I pass watches for them to service. There's a flea market upstairs. I went upstairs. I was like brisk walking, and suddenly I saw this Omega sitting on the corner, like,
Oh.
what is this? Oh my gosh, this looks beautiful, and it connected with me that moment. Kind of established some sort of like, it was like a love at first sight kind of feel. You know, it's corny as hell, but it's
Yeah.
true.
It was
And
a
then-
watch flea market lah.
Yeah, it's not really a watch. Sorry,
It's
it's,
just
it's you know Publica they have like
Yeah.
all these
Oh,
like,
literally just
everything.
that random lah.
Toys, candles, diffusers, and this one guy, Japanese vendor, sitting in a corner, had like a bunch of Gucci, Rolex, Cartier
Oh.
watches, and then suddenly this guy is sitting in a corner,
Yeah.
and it was like screaming, do pick
Yeah.
me, you know. And when I bought it, I realized it's actually one of the most beautiful pieces, purest in design
Very
that I
nice.
really bought. Yeah,
Mm.
the condition's great. Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, that really sums up the way I collect these days. I only want watches that connect with me on a certain level. So weird to say that, but
Yeah.
yeah,
You only want the watches that you want.
Coincidentally, that has always been vintage pieces, though.
not really actually. There are
necessarily.
some watches like I don't know if this is okay. So this is newer vintage,
Mhm.
right? So I also like modern pieces.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the watches that I've connected with
Mhm.
are, for example, the Hoya Skipper, the
Mm.
new one, the holding key one.
Mm.
The Zenith El Primero, I believe is the A385,
Mm.
50 years of El Primero, the anniversary
Mm.
piece. That thing's a modern watch.
Mm.
I love those pieces. But of course, like you said, in terms of what I look for,
Mm.
I realize it's always been the classic stuff. Yeah, I've always been into like really, really classic pieces. Also, I think it really because the nature of my job is I look at pieces every day.
Yeah.
Mm.
Like I look at grill level stuff every day.
Yeah, yeah.
Right.
And then I see, oh, very nice Parmigiani, Tonda, great.
Mm.
So I don't feel a connection to these pieces, no matter how
Yeah.
beautiful they are.
And you get to experience them firsthand anyway, so you don't necessarily feel like maybe you
In a way,
need
yeah.
to own them.
Yeah, I was like, oh, great. Calatrava, okay, thanks.
Mm.
I mean, yeah, I love a 25-26 Calatrava, don't get
Yeah,
me wrong.
yeah.
First series, beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Mm.
But, if it doesn't connect with me,
Yeah.
I won't buy it, I won't bother. It's very hard to get excited about stuff these days.
Yeah.
Um,
Understand.
Yeah, so I realized, for me, collecting has always been a journey.
Mm.
It's never going to end. That's why I don't believe in grey watches.
Mm.
Yeah, so you ask me a grey watch, I don't know. I'll tell you what's on my radar right now. It might change. Yeah, so and these watches I always have some sort of a connection to it on an emotional level. Yeah.
And are any of these pieces that you see potentially letting go in the future, or you're the kind that it's
Oh, are you scouting?
no. I mean, I just want to see. Are you, in a way, a watch hoarder, or like?
I hate to say this because whenever people ask me, "Are you a collector?" I always like, "Am I a hoarder or a collector?" I don't know because when I define how I define collector is number one, do you embrace the love, the pain and the suffering that comes with the hunt? I'm sure all of us here we know that. And number two, do you only buy what you like? For me, I would say early stages. This is a representation of my early stage of collecting. Not collecting. I think it's hoarding at this point, right? So I think in recent years I've become more mindful with the pieces that I want to own. But yeah, definitely some pieces will go, but not. It's very hard to put a finger on it because a lot of these pieces mean a lot to me now that I'm looking at them right now. Right? There's a reason why I brought these here because they mean something to me, and I don't mean it in a corny,
Yeah.
right? It really does mean something to. Perhaps maybe this one, I don't know. Some of these pieces I bought out of impulse, but I still love them all the same. I still wear them. I beat them up.
I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, that's my personal issue as well, or personal first world problem.
Yeah.
It's like logically speaking, it's like you only have that amount of time, that amount of wristwear that you can do,
Yeah.
and it's like, do I wear all my watches? No. But then every time when I think of selling them, it's like,
It hurts.
yeah, I was like, ugh.
It really hurts. I'm telling you, it hurts. So that's when you know, like, okay, maybe I'm a collector. Sanity check, yes. If it does not hurt, then like you're just amassing a collection of whatever. You have money, you're just buying. You don't have a personal connection to them. So that's sort of the moment I realized these all mean something to me. And, it's hard for me to let go. I don't know, maybe hard times. I don't know. I really
Hopefully
don't-
never, like,
Hopefully
right?
never.
That's the scenario that.
Yeah, because they all represent a certain part in my life. These are all vessels of memories for me. It's so corny to say it, but it's true.
Yeah.
So what does watch, the term, mean to you? The first thing come to your mind? A fashion piece, a companion, or like?
I see it as a companionship
Yeah.
kind of thing, right? It's fashion, yes, definitely. I will be lying if I say I don't collect because of aesthetics. Yes, but it's not a big part of it. But it's mostly it's an object that we don't need, right? We have
Yes.
our phones, In fact, the watch I'm wearing today is not even set to proper time. Everyone gives me shit for that. Like, Marshall, what are you gonna set your time? Like, dude, I don't care, man. So for me, it's a vessel of perhaps memories, and also at the same time, it makes me feel a certain way when I put it on. You know, when I wear this, it makes me feel like, wow, I don't know how to describe it, but it makes me feel like I want to wear a certain kind of jacket in the office, like a jumper. I mean, when I wear this, it makes me feel a bit more preppy. I want to wear something a bit more adventurous, you know. So there's really no. It's hard to put a finger on it, honestly. But yeah. So it's just, if I had to really put in a description, there are objects that make me feel a certain way, and I enjoy feeling different ways of wearing these watches. You know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. So with that said, how pre and post, right, in the early stage and now,
Yeah.
what has mainly changed in terms of your thoughts about watches?
I'm a bit more jaded now.
Yeah.
I hate to admit it.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's very hard to get excited about certain things.
Yeah.
But for me,
Is that more of a you thing or a watch industry thing?
I think it's a me thing.
Is it
You
you?
still get crazy, enthusiastic people,
Yeah.
and I'll be like, oh god, okay, it's not that special, but okay, I have to,
Yeah.
But it's a me thing.
Yeah.
I hate to say this, but I've seen a lot. I
Yeah.
tried a lot,
Yeah.
and I've realized that I have a very certain particular taste now, which is these three pieces.
In a way, you have matured, like,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, definitely.
And the fact that you had opportunity to try a lot of stuff
Yep.
through your experience as well, then
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
that's
So-
fair enough. Yeah.
My inclination, in a way, is still towards vintage in a sense, because it sort of represents the spirit of those watches when they were made. I love those things about collecting. Back then, it wasn't so much of that. It was like, yeah, Amazon Prime, nice. Got some money, nice, can sacrifice this week's meals,
Yeah.
and then it's
But while on
definitely
that,
changed.
have you like started experiencing the pains of vintage in terms of like
Yep.
authenticating it, servicing it,
Yep.
like and stuff?
I'll share you a bit of a story. For example, this CWC G10. I love this piece. It's so honest. Like there's cracks on the crystal. I don't ever want to replace this. But when I bought this was actually a eBay auction. As there was no way for me to authenticate it, right? Because there are actually a lot of fakes.
Yeah.
They have like fake ETA circuit boards, right? I had to. I just grit my teeth and just bought it because it's so cheap, like 300, 400 ringgit. And then I was praying that it was
The real deal.
yeah. And it came out luckily like that, right? And then obviously this is the only story.
Yep.
I bid on some Franken Seikos before.
Oh.
I also had one. Oh, this is the most painful one. I'm telling you. I haven't brought this up before. Oh my gosh, I need therapy to resolve this. But it's actually a 6139 Seiko Pope.
Oh. Okay.
It was actually a gift from a friend who's based in Australia. He bought it for me. I mean, we connected over Instagram and all. We become great friends, and then I think we're no longer friends, sadly. One day he texted me and said, "Hey, do you still have that Seiko? Can I have it for a few weeks?" I'm like, yeah, sure. You bought it for me, right? Yeah, why not? Yeah, you're gonna wear it for a few weeks and then you ship it back to me. I never saw that piece again, and it broke my heart because that watch I cherished a lot, and I've been on the hunt ever since. Like I want a nice 6139, but it's always a lot of like Franken parts. And when I was hunting for that, because the world of vintage is still very new to me at the time, right? So I was bidding on like Franken pieces, and then I realized, oh god, I bid on this. I am the highest bidder right now. Why is there no one bidding over me? And I was talking to a lot of people who are in the watch servicing industry, and they were telling me, oh, these are fake. These are fake. So all those mistakes really took a toll on me because, you know, as a student, you don't have a lot of money, and then bid on a Franken watch. What are you gonna do with it? You know.
Yeah.
So I think it's a lot of stories like that.
Did you win any of those bids?
Oh hell no! Thank God. Except for this one, so I'm very proud of this one.
Yeah, but this one is not, right?
Yeah,
So-
this is not. Thank goodness. I thought it was. Because,
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of near scares.
Yeah, near scares for sure. Yeah, and then this one's a bit more. This one's quite expensive now, right? It's so hard to find these days in this sort of condition. But I love this one a lot. Yeah.
Very nice.
All right.
Yeah.
So I think we can probably wrap this segment out, part one, with one last question.
Yep.
What like advice would you give to yourself, your old past?
Oh, pass.
Yeah.
DKNY guy.
Listen to your mom. I'm joking.
Mommy knows best.
No, I disagree, but
I hope your mom's not watching, but
sorry, mom. No. But I think be responsible. Buy responsibly. Also buy only what you like. I think that's the biggest thing we struggle today because of like social media will telling you, oh, one swatch and all that stuff. You know,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
go buy it and you queue and then you go there and like, what the hell am I doing here? I mean, I have a few moments like that for sure, and I sold those pieces. Like the first System 51, I regretted that purchase and I ended up with this one. But yeah, don't buy into hype. You know,
Yeah.
never buy into hype. Always buy what you like because it's more sustainable like that in long term. Yeah.
but and I mean, to add on to that note, sometimes it's very difficult to identify what you like.
Yeah.
Right, until you buy it.
Okay, so
Right.
here's my advice:
Yeah.
buy it, feel the pain,
Yeah.
then sell it.
No, I
That way
mean,
you
don't
learn.
don't force yourself to liking it.
Oh, yeah.
Then that's what
Even though you
do,
pay for
right?
it lah.
There's a trend of people these days. They buy a watch, they don't know what they're buying, and then they go back and research after buying it. It could be I don't know if it's a good thing or not, but
Validating the purchase,
there you
right?
go. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
it's like confirmation bias,
yeah,
right?
yeah, there you go. So don't do that. You can do it the first few times. Learn from it, remember that pain,
Yeah.
and don't do it again. So I think for people starting into this whole crazy world of collecting and stuff, and don't be consumed by the insanity of it. Right? You don't need that watch, honestly. You know, don't buy it just because you want to get in. Put yourself in financial debt. I've seen people doing that. They do that as well.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous. So yeah, just approach this superficial, materialistic hobby with a middle class mindset. That's what I
Fair
do.
enough.
Like, look at me, I drive an old car. Like, well, it doesn't matter, you know, because at the end of the day, these are your watches, and you don't need to own like in the words of John May, you don't need a rich bitch lifestyle to wear a Patek. You can wear a Patek, drive a Toyota, Yaris, whatever. Still be good. You owned it, you know. So that's why I always say buy what you really like. Don't listen to what social media has to tell you and watch blogs. You know, those are great research reference material, but never let it affect your purchasing decisions. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a fantastic way to end it. That quote, by the way, the middle class mindset, that should be in a t-shirt, I think.
Yeah, and a picture of Marshall with a Patek Toyota, right?
And then I'll be like wearing slippers. Hey, what the hell's going on here?
And your mom next to you.
All right.
Should be like
I think we will close off this episode for today, and we'll see you next one for part 2. Right, we'll be with Marshall again. Right. Thanks, everyone.